Good evening, Walking Dead fans, and welcome back to our review show. And we are coming close to the end of this season. We're at our penultimate episode here, episode
15.
15. And this one was called East. And so there really wasn't a lot here, honestly. Definitely wasn't one of the better episodes this season. It was really just all set up.
Right.
Everything was looking like, our group was going to be pretty darn entrenched, well in their safe haven, as if it were. They had everything
Right. They're
ready
supposed
to
to be
go.
setting up to be on the defensive because they can guard from inside. They're adding guard posts and ammo shacks and ammo stashes and gun stashes all over town and hiding them where anybody who gets in won't be able to find them, but we will, is what Rick said, or Maggie said.
Maggie said, right.
And then Daryl takes off.
Right, he's looking through stuff. He sees the keychain that Denise had gotten at the on the supply run that said Dennis for her brother.
Right.
And obviously he's still having some problems with the fact that he left Dwight alive the first time, and then had the second encounter with him as well, and he still got away. He didn't go after him then, so now he's decided that he's definitely going after him. Now, in the preview, they made it look like he was going after Carol.
But at this point, we haven't found Carol missing yet.
Right.
So he is obviously going after Dwight. So Maggie, Michonne, Glenn, and
Rosita.
Well, no. Maggie, Michonne, and Glenn are setting up the weapons.
Right, and then they
Rosita's
notice...
on duty,
yes.
And Abraham's up top.
Right. Well, I was just going to say that regardless of how all that shakes out, Daryl goes out. It ends up being Rosita, Glenn, and Michonne that go out after him just immediately, without consulting anything, without talking to Rick or anything like that. Now, granted, I know that Maggie is kind of the de facto leader at this point, as far as planning and things like that go, and she obviously is there and knows what's happening. But obviously Rick has a lot of say-so still. I mean, when he leaves with Morgan to go after Carol, when we find out that she left, he explicitly says, no one else leaves. So, I mean, obviously, there's still a little bit of the remnants of the Rick-tatorship. It's more like he's the leader in wartime and Maggie's the leader in peacetime, the face as if it were. So, you have Carol out and about, as we kind of said. You have, now you have Rick and Morgan going after. Rick ends up coming back before the end of the episode, but Morgan and Carol are still out and about.
So, you know what we kind of skipped for Rick? We had some major character development at the very first scene, the Roshone scene. Right? Where he says the world is ours and we know how to take it.
Okay.
And I think that's probably the first sign that Rick isn't really one of the good guys anymore. Like, that's the first thing he said that sounded exactly like the governor.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out as it goes forward. Obviously, I think that if by the time we talk about the group of people that are going to be facing Negan here potentially at the end, between what we see at the end of this episode, who's still out there, and who are the people that are going to end up being out in the RV based on what we see in the preview. Now, as I said, this is a lot of setup here, because we get Rick back, but as you said,
Morgan is still out there chasing Carol with a savior on his tail and maybe one between them.
Right. And then Rosita, Glenn, and Michonne end up getting captured by Dwight's group.
Because why? Because they stopped and had full voice conversations standing up in the middle of the woods for like 5 minutes. If that's not just asking for trackers to walk up on you and take your group, I don't know what is in this day and age. Seriously, you have a van, get back to your van, get in the van, have the conversation in the van.
Right, and they've had this problem over and over and over again. That's actually how Denise died, is they're
Standing
having
in the middle of everything and having a conversation
Right.
out in public, and bam, down she goes. You'd think they would have learned their lesson about, monologues in the open at this point, but apparently not.
At least we as viewers apparently have not gotten sick of it yet, because they're still doing it and we're still watching it.
And the worst part is after Glenn and Michonne get captured, they use them as bait to draw in Daryl and Rosita, and Daryl and Rosita fall for it.
Right, and so then at the very end, Dwight shoots Daryl, and you hear him say, you'll be alright. And so you don't necessarily know if he's talking to Daryl when he says that, or if, again, this could be another one of those bait and switch things where they're sort of, showing us one thing that ends up being another. Like in this episode, the
he
preview.
Could be reassuring someone else in the group, like Rosita, that she'll be alright, even though Daryl is gone. Because Dwight implied when he shot Denise that he was actually aiming for Daryl.
Yes.
So it was his stated, implied intention to off Daryl to begin with as soon as he ran into them again. So
Right, and not only that, but Daryl, explicitly said at that point,
I should have killed you.
And so, he's like, well, maybe you're right. So
I don't think Dwight would have given him another chance if he had any opportunity to stop him in some way. So immediately injuring him severely would probably be sufficient if he wanted to bring him back to Negan. But at this point, it might just be personal. He might have just put him down.
Right. And
that would suck. And I will cry if that's what happened. But
I mean, it was kind of
looked like it could have been.
Right, but it was very cold. I mean, a lot of this episode was like they're cold open, and they're cold open for this episode which was exactly the preview that they showed last week. Some blood dripping on the ground from a spike driven through a car, which was all Carol.
Yeah, the only difference was this time we actually got to hear her voice.
Right, so we knew that at least that it was her,
and that she was alive at that point.
Right. So, I mean, they have a tendency to kind of play around with these previews and the closings and things like that. They'll repeat the scene and they might change it up just a little bit. So, my gut feeling is that Daryl is not dead at this point. Now, that's not saying that this wasn't the prelude to them actually killing him in the finale, which is definitely a possibility. I think I give it better than 50% odds personally that Negan might take out Daryl, because Daryl now has taken out a very large swath of his men. Unless Dwight kind of takes up for him in some way, because he feels bad because he managed to, save him by getting him the insulin and all that stuff. But I don't know. We don't know enough about the character to have any reason to think that would be the case.
See, but wasn't it Negan's group that they stole the insulin from anyway, and that's why he got punished and why his face is all melted on one side? That was his punishment for stealing the insulin to begin with?
Again, those are assumptions. We don't know that, but that's kind of
what we're getting, right?
They made it seem like, if they went back, there was going to be some kind of punishment. And we
because
know that
with Shell, they cut off her finger for
right.
stealing, so
it makes sense that it would be some kind of punishment for something, although we don't necessarily know what. Him trying to escape, him stealing something.
And he obviously brought the motorcycle back to Negan's people because we found it at the satellite compound.
Right.
So
okay, so
moving through.
With all this, we have sort of the preview set up for next week. We have Maggie, at the end of this episode, starts having
some kind of abdominal pain.
Right. We're not sure exactly what they're, but obviously we are in quite a predicament here because there is no doctor. We've lost Denise. We're
a day away from Hilltop.
Right. So now
Carol's gone. She's the next closest thing we have to a midwife because she was trained by Herschel. We have nobody to take care of Maggie at this point.
With the exception of the doctor at Hilltop.
And that's a day away, right? A day's drive?
Right. But I'm saying, now instead of being thoroughly entrenched in Alexandria and not having to leave, now they're going to
have to leave.
Right.
Again.
Right.
And so, who do we see in the RV scene in the road where he says we don't negotiate? It's Rick.
Right. And I went back and watched the preview several times to make sure that I was getting it. So we definitely have out there Rick, Carl, Eugene, and Aaron. And I'm pretty sure that Abraham was there as well. And we're going to have to assume that Maggie is probably in the back of the RV, probably being taken care of by Enid would be my guess, since, there was so much development between those two in this episode where Enid had the moment with Glenn and was kind of taking care of Maggie in this episode, relieving her of her shift and all that good stuff.
And we know that Glenn's not coming back to take care of Maggie, so who else would hold her hand the whole way to the doctor? In this case, I think it's Enid.
So that's going to be the group.
And the other question I had was, did they also bring Sasha, and is she somewhere in the trees with a suppressed sniper rifle waiting to take out the other side?
Well, they're going to have to leave a certain, contingent, I think, back at Alexandria. And Sasha being one of the better marksmen, always wanting to volunteer to be the lookout and the tower and everything else. I'm not saying that she wouldn't be great for cover and everything of that nature, but I think that knowing what they know, they'll probably leave her back at Alexandria, along with Gabriel and a couple of the other ones from our group that we know are stronger to help protect, home base just in case, there's an attack while part of the group is gone.
But we have the Atlanta Five, plus Sasha left from the prison, and then we picked up Abraham and Eugene and Rosita, and all of those people are out in the field. You really think that Sasha's going to stay behind with the town when everybody else that she loves and cares about is out there?
You make a good point, but again,
I'm just saying
somebody
that everybody
needs to
back at
protect
Alexandria is secondary. They've trained them to take care of themselves. They know what to do now. Rick said that. We've trained them. They know what to do now.
Right.
I think that he's going to leave Spencer in charge of town, and they're all going to go cavalry after their people. It's their people.
Well, again, we don't really know.
And he's
everything.
The one who started this, and Morgan's telling him that everything comes full circle is starting to bring that realization home.
I got you, but we know things as viewers that Rick and company don't know, so you're assuming that they know everything. They don't know that everybody's captured yet. He doesn't know that Michonne's been captured and whatnot. Rick now is sitting back. He knows that they haven't returned yet. But that could be that they've gone after Daryl and, whatever the situation is. Now, I'm sure that he can get worried and everything like that, but he doesn't know that they've been captured. So there's no reason for him to go looking to get them back, right? There's no reason for him to go off half-cocked and say, we need to take everybody that's strong and go.
It's true.
Because he doesn't know. All he knows right now is, at this point, is, what I'm seeing from this is that Maggie's in trouble, and we need to get her there. So we need a group of strong people that can take her to Hilltop so that she can see a doctor. And then, we need somebody back here that's trusting to be in charge. This is the way that I see it, regardless of, whether she comes out or not. That could be Spencer. That could be a combination.
Spencer, Tobin, Michonne. Tobin's kind of the mayor. He was the head of the construction crew.
Michonne is gone. She's captured.
Not Michonne, sorry, Sasha.
Yeah.
Sasha.
Okay.
Yep.
So, at this point, if everybody ends up coming back together before the end of the episode, then our potentials to meet Negan are Rosita, Glenn, Michonne, Daryl, Maggie, Rick, Carl, Eugene, Aaron, and Enid.
Also, Carol and Morgan, depending on how their travels go, they could cross more saviors and be taken in as well.
True. Now,
just because they're in the field, it makes them more vulnerable.
That is indeed true. Now, I think that there's too much. Now, granted, this next episode is going to be a 90-minute episode, and they have sort of rushed through some things before and done things a little bit faster than I thought.
But they do keep saying we're going to meet Negan this time.
Right.
And that's it. Meet Negan.
I don't think that they're going to kill off either Michonne or Morgan right now myself. I think that that's going to that they might meet up with each other, and we might not even see them in this next episode. I mean, really, too much of
Carol and Morgan?
Right.
You said Michelle.
I'm sorry.
Carol and Morgan.
We might not see much of them, really. Like, we might see them meet up with each other and, kind of off on the side. And
like Heath and Tara, they might just be gone for 2 weeks, and we don't see them till next season.
Right. Now, it might not be exactly like that. I'm just saying I don't see them necessarily as being in trouble. Now, the group that I mentioned before, the Rosita all the way through to Enid, now that group I see as potentially being the group that, sits down with Negan and, he's going to, potentially, like they keep alluding to, take somebody, if not more than one person out. So, if that's the case, our main things we're looking at right now are, what's the fate of Daryl? Is he going to make it? Is he already dead? Did he die at the end of that episode and we just are going to confirm that in the finale? Or is, he just wounded and like, Dwight was talking to him, he'll be okay. Was that the case? And then, is that just a setup for him to be taken out by Negan? Now, again, like I said, I give pretty good odds, at this point that Daryl he's in trouble. I mean, no doubt, like I said, about 60% chance that he doesn't survive this season to me. Other than that, I mean, looking at the rest of the thing, it's really hard for me. I've been saying for the past, 4 episodes that I think that Aaron is probably going to end up taking the place of Glenn in the comics.
Right.
I'm still saying pretty strongly that I think Aaron might be, one that Negan takes out. So, it could be that it would be Aaron and Daryl. That's a definite possibility. I definitely think that more than one character is a possibility. I really don't think it's going to be more than one of the Atlanta 5. I think if we lose one of the Atlanta 5, like I said, I think it'll be either Daryl or, but I don't think it'll be Daryl and, Glenn or, like I said, one of the other
right.
Atlanta 5.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page there. It makes me sad, but I think we're probably on the same page. It seems like Norman has already made arrangements to move on, and that makes me sad because Daryl's one of my favorite characters in the show. But I definitely think that he's up at the top of the list as far as Negan wanting one of our group dead. And as soon as Dwight tells him about him, I think that's going to put him right at the top of the list. But, he could go for Carl for the shock factor.
Right.
And it could be Enid who joins Negan's group instead. Because if you've read the comics, then you know that Carl ends up joining Negan's group. And if he takes Carl out...
Now, that, again, we haven't read the comics. That's,
just spoilery things we've read.
Right. So that could be a misunderstanding on our part, and that's sort of just reading through some stuff online over the last couple of weeks and everything like that, trying to kind of get to grips where this might go. Now,
so if that's the case, and he takes Carl out instead because he goes for shock factor, and the first thing he did at Hilltop was kill a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah, they did mention that before too.
So if he takes out,
is that potentially alluding to what's going to happen by saying that he took out a child?
So if they take out the sheriff's kid, he is still wearing the hat, right? Take out the sheriff's kid as an example. Does Enid join Negan because it fits with just survive somehow?
Right, and I mean he could at that point also. You could make the argument that he's doing him a favor, sort of, coming from a completely outside, very, Darwinian perspective, is like this is a kid in a post-apocalypse that's missing an eye. Now, if you just ran across Carl and didn't know him and didn't know, what a badass he is, you just see a
You
kid
might
who's missing
see
an eye.
might see it as a major disadvantage that
Right.
might get you killed in the apocalypse.
Right. You might think
but-
you're presenting the idea of a mercy killing here by saving this poor kid from the obvious horrible gruesome death that he's going to experience because you don't know what he's been through.
But you'd be making the same mistake as the people who think that Carol is begging for her safety.
Right. Well, I've seen some other interesting things here and there, some theories and everything like that, and one of them was that we're going to be kind of left hanging at the end of this.
Oh, don't even. Oh.
And so I've kind of gone back, and what I mean by that is, let's say that,
My stomach is nuts over this.
Negan comes up and, lines everybody up and, picks out who he's, going to use as his example. And then, kind of like at the end of The Sopranos, it just sort of goes black, right before we see what the result is, I mean, we see him swing the bat as if it were, and then, fade to black. Now,
Or, worse yet, it switches to the viewpoint of the victim.
right.
And you see the bat coming, and then everything gets kind of shaky and fuzzy. And then the bat comes again, and everything goes black.
Now, I went back and I was looking at the final episode of every season so far,
I will
and
not be okay.
they've never left us over the entire break with something that would be that brutal. I mean, honestly, it's like you go the first season and we had the explosion at the CDC and the knowledge that everybody was infected.
Right.
So they drop some heavy stuff on us at the end of every season, but they drop the heavy stuff on us. So personally, I would be out and out angry if they choose who they're going to kill if we've gone through all of this, because that's what it's been to me, is like a build up to, okay, so we built up this horrible person, Negan. He's definitely going to take somebody out, if not more than one character.
It's going to be someone we love. It's going to
Right.
be devastating. Who will it be? And then they don't tell us.
Yeah,
Oh.
that would almost be worse than it being, like pick my favorite character or my favorite two characters,
Right?
if they just didn't like.
Right?
But I don't know.
But so far, they've been really good about making the hard decisions, killing off characters that were well loved in horrible ways.
Right, and we keep coming back for more.
And they make that decision and they stick to it. And I really appreciate that they don't ever backpedal.
Right. Well, the next one, the final episode is Last Day on Earth, and so that's definitely saying it's the last day on Earth. Well, then we know that
We're assuming that means it's one of our main characters' last day on Earth.
right, and so obviously we're moving into some pretty heavy times here. We've made some predictions one way or the other. Now we could go through the entire list and sit here and say, well, what are the pros and cons? Would it move the story forward? Would it be devastating for this, that, and the other? I mean, obviously it would be.
Who would be completely destroyed if that happened? Would we have a character snap? What would that character do if they truly snapped? I mean,
Sure.
on and on and on. If it's Abraham who takes it from Negan because he didn't get it from Dwight, what will that do to Sasha? After everything else, Bob, Tyrese, all of that, what would that do to Sasha? We saw her snap after Bob.
Right. We may put together some sort of, if we come up with any really good theories about what would happen if any one person, we might put something else together. I have some ideas, but I don't want to spend all night going over each individual, possibility, but if anything spectacular, comes into my head that I think you guys really need to hear about, then we'll definitely let you know this week. I mean, obviously, this is the last week, so we're coming down the line here. But
Yep, so sorry for the delay in posting, guys. Easter was the same day as Walking Dead, as I'm sure a lot of you know, and So to that end, we had some family obligations to fulfill that put us a bit behind schedule, but you know us, processing always takes a while anyway, so we hope to have this up tomorrow. We'll see you guys next Sunday, if nothing else.
All right. Y'all take care.